من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوحي وأكرمنا بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Welcome once again to our next lesson on methods of research in Islamic studies. In our previous lesson, we dealt with the different approaches and designs in research as far as Islamic studies is concerned. Now, let us take a look at each of these designs and approaches. So, in this lesson, let's talk about textual and scriptural research. Before we proceed, let us contemplate on this question. What changes when the object of analysis is also sacred scripture, such as the Quran? So this is the exact concern of our lesson. So the core question that we have is how can sacred and historical texts can be read with rigor and at the same time humility. It means to say we don't sacrifice the scholarly rigor of the research as well as the attitude of humility expected of an Islamic studies researcher. So by the end of the session, we are expected to be able to comprehend, to compare classical and modern textual methods. Number 2, apply tafsir, hadith, and usul principles. We mean usul, we are referring to usulul fiqh principles. Third, use close reading, content, and discourse analysis. And of course, identify interpretive ethics and limitations. Now, Islamic text research actually begins inside disciplined traditions of reading. If we take a look at the Quran, the Hadith, the different sciences of Hadith, as well as fiqh or jurisprudence, disciplined traditions of reading cannot be denied. So when we talk about the Quran, we use the sciences of tafsir, the Arabic language, the context, the Qur'an, and the transmission of the text. And so much with hadith also. In hadith, first we deal with the isnad, that is in fact the subject of the ilmul rijal or the science of the translators. Then the matan or the text of the hadith, whether this one is absurd, whether this one is anachronistic, etc. Then the classification of the hadith, such as Sahih, Hasan, Mawdu, Da'if, and many other classifications. And of course, the historical use. Now, if we also take a look at fiqh or Islamic jurisprudence, we read rulings through the usul or the principles of jurisprudence, the legal reasoning and the school traditions, the different schools of jurisprudence. The same also with other texts, the secondary subjects of Islamic studies, such as theology or what we call as kalam, philosophy, falsafa, spirituality or irfan, biography, and local works, which are also Islamic studies, are also dealing with Islamic studies subjects. Now, if we focus on the tafsir of the Quran, methods actually differ in evidence as well as interpretive reach. For example, there are tafasir which are on the basis of what we call as bil ma'thur, that is uh, relying heavily on the transmitted reports. So under this approach, we interpret through the Quran, Hadith, and early authorities. Another method of tafsir is what we call as birray, or disciplined reasoning. That is, we use language, context, ijtihad, and ijtihad within accepted principles. Abu Hanifa was a noted champion of this method. And we also have ishari, or from the root word or from the word ishara, meaning indication or signal. So we are referring to elusive insight that could be taken. So under this method, we explore spiritual meanings without canceling the apparent sense. So usually verses are interpreted in two levels, the apparent as well as the inward level, or the the batin sense of the passage. So that was as far as hadith, that as far as tafsir is concerned. Now, when we proceed to hadith and legal text, they require different chains of verification. So the authority is method dependent. What I mean is that a quotation becomes evidence only after the researcher establishes what it is, where it comes from, and how it functions. For example, in hadith, we trace transmission and narrator reliability. So that is the subject of ilmur rijal. And we also analyze wording, variance, and context. That is the concern, or the subject of dirayatul hadith, as we have learned in our hadith courses. And of course, to distinguish authenticity from later use. Now, let's proceed to usulul fiqh, the principles of jurisprudence. When we study usul, as we have also learned in our subject on fiqh, we identify the legal question and relevant text that could be found, apply rules of language and inference, and locate the ruling within juristic disagreement if ever there are disagreements. Now, those are related to the classics. How about the modern methods? In fact, modern methods can extend, not necessarily replacing classical scholarship. In fact, without replacing classical scholarship. First, we read the details. That is, we attend to wording, structure, context, and the intertextual links of them. Then we take a look at the content. That is, we map the patterns. So we code recurring concepts, if ever, that we could observe across a defined corpus, or a defined a set of written references. And from there, we try to study power and language. We try to analyze the discourse by examining how texts construct authority, or identity, or social meaning, if ever we could observe them. Of course, as we read closely, definitely we could observe these things as we conduct discourse analysis. Now, we need to understand that both the classical texts as well as the modern techniques of research, interpretive ethics, akhlaq, constrains both certainty or yakin and the use or utility. So we need to map four items. First is adab, that is the protocol or the discipline. We approach sacred text with reverence and intellectual discipline. When we mean text, basically we are referring to the sacred Islamic text that we have. And of course, the respect should also be shown to other religious texts as they ought to be given. The next item that we need to account is the context. Why? Because we avoid isolating a verse from another from a set of verses. We also avoid isolating report of a hadith or ruling of a fiqh or fiqhi ruling from its setting. Yes, we do that. And aside from adab, the inward sense of humility should always be with the researcher because we distinguish textual evidence from one's own inference. And the last but not least is our sense of justice. We do not weaponize interpretation against vulnerable groups, especially minorities. So a strong textual study builds a traceable source chain. We have the primary, we have the secondary, and the digital. So within primary, we are referring to the original corpus of tafsir or hadith, for example. So here we use reliable editions, manuscripts, recordings, or resource language text. And as for the secondary sources, we do the scholarly conversation by consulting different commentaries of the Quran or tafsir, critical studies, and established reference works which are related to the study that we are conducting. And apart from the primary and secondary sources, we also, especially now, we also consult digital sources. Why? Because via online, we could search and compare easily by using databases and corpora, then verify every digital result uh, with other means of verification that we could have, either printed or also digital. Now, when we say Islamic text, when we say Islamic text, we need to understand that Islamic textual life extends beyond the Arabic print. Why? Because the archive now is multilingual and living. It is always there or almost always there online. Vernacular writing, oral teaching, sermons, bio, and translated text reveal how Islam is understood locally. So here, aside from the Arabic print, we need to expand to include Filipino and local language sources, especially if our subject of research demands us to do so. Also, document oral and perform text. and of course, study circulation, audience, and translation that are available. And we also limit ourselves by stating the gaps in language competence that we have. For example, our language Arabic level is in just intermediate or beginner or elementary or basic, and then we avoid treating digital access as completeness. Why? Because access, digital sources may not be accurate if we try to check them on the printed sources. Then we combine textual work with history or field work when needed, as we always do in our program. So as we go along, um, maybe try to design a textual inquiry or textual topic by defining a short corpus, choosing one interpretive method, and naming one ethical quotient. So next meeting, we will proceed with another deep dive on another method of research that we do. Thank you so much and see you then, inshallah ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.